Follow the word. Follow the word. Last night we went to my aunt's 90th birthday party. This is, I think, the 4th 90th birthday that we celebrated in the last few years.
Longevity's in your family, huh?
Yes.
Amen.
So this is like the 4th, but there were different people at the birthday party, and my aunt's stepson, who is a very well-known singer and band leader in the Dominican Republic, was there. And he was sad because he wouldn't get up and dance with her as was requested. I guess his fear for that might go into Facebook or media. I mean, this is your stepmom who brought you to this country and literally raised you from when you were a kid. So my message today has to do with hypocrisy. And eating one thing didn't have anything to do with the other, but I thought that when I saw that happen last night, I thought that that was very hypocritical of that person. I'm not going to mention any name, but I thought it was very hypocritical. And it's something that we do it as a church all the time. And we have to be very mindful, because sometimes we do it without literally being conscious of what we're doing, but we do it anyway. So let's turn our Bibles to Matthew 15, 1 to 11. Matthew 15, 1 to 11.
561.
And let's read. Then the scribes and Pharisees who were from Jerusalem came to Jesus, saying, "Why do your disciples transgress the tradition of the elders? For they do not wash their hands when they eat bread." He answered and said to them, "Why do you also transgress the commandment of God because of your tradition? For God commanded, saying, 'Honor your father and your mother, and he who curses father or mother, let him be put to death.' But you say, 'Whoever says to his father or mother, whatever profit you might have received from me is a gift of God, then he need not honor his father or mother. Thus you have made the commandment of God of no effect by your tradition. Hypocrites! Well did Isaiah prophesy about, saying, 'These people draw near to me with their mouth and honor me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. And in vain they worship me, teaching as doctrines the commandments of men.' When he had called the multitude to himself, he said to them, 'Hear and understand. Now what goes into the mouth defiles a man, but what comes out of the mouth, this defiles a man.'" I want to read something that Greg Laurie posted on one of his, I get his devotional all the time. He posted this, and I thought it was funny, but at the same time, I thought that I've seen people who act this way. Here's what he says. "A lady went to her pastor and said, 'Pastor, I won't be going to your church anymore.' The pastor responded, 'But why?' The lady said, 'I saw a woman gossiping about another member, a man that is a hypocrite. The worship team leaving wrong, people looking at their phone during service, among so many other things wrong in your church.' The pastor replied, 'Okay, but before you go, do me a favor. Take a full glass of water and walk around the church 3 times without spilling a drop on the ground. Afterwards, leave the church if you desire.' The lady thought, 'Too easy.' She walked 3 times around the church, and as the pastor had asked, when she finished, she told the pastor she was ready to leave. The pastor said, 'Before you leave, I want to ask you one more question. When you were walking around the church, did you see anyone gossiping?' The lady replied, 'No.' 'Did you see any hypocrites?' The lady said, 'No.' 'Anyone looking at their phones?' 'No.' 'You know why?' 'No. You were focused on the glass to make sure you didn't stumble and spill any water. It's the same with our lives. When we keep our eyes on Jesus, we don't have time to see the mistakes of others. We will reach out a helping hand to them and concentrate on our walk with the Lord. So you see, it's excellent. It's excellent. But hypocrisy does not come from God, and that's my first point. He says in the first 2 verses, "Then the scribes and Pharisees who were from Jerusalem came to Jesus saying, 'Why do your disciples transgress the tradition of the elders? For they do not wash their hands when they eat bread.'" Now, the washing of hands is a Jewish tradition. It's actually a ritual, okay? So what they do is, if you're right-handed, you take your left hand and you pour it over your dominant hand first to cleanse your hand. Take a bowl, but when you take the bowl with your right hand to wash it, to cleanse your other hand, you take the bowl with like a towel or something, because the hand is already cleansed. You don't want to dirty it by holding onto the bowl. So what you do is you hold it with a towel or something, and then you pour it over your other hand. And then after you do that, you pray this prayer. It says, "Blessed are you, Hashem, our God, King of the universe, who has sanctified us with his commandments and has commanded us regarding the washing of hands." Now after this blessing, they take a bite of the bread. However, if they speak while they're doing this, they have to start all over. So they can't speak while they're doing this, otherwise they have to start all over. Now biblically, we have read where the high priest had to wash his hands before he ate, right? During the time of Moses. This washing of the hands did not come from the laws of Moses. This is a tradition that was picked up by the Jews, and it was written into their Mishnah, into their Mishnah, which means an authoritative collection of exegetical material embodying the oral tradition of Jewish law and forming the first part of the Talmud. Now, what they did was, this started during the Babylonian captivity, is when the Jews started this. So when they came back from captivity back into the land of Israel and the land of Judah, then they continued this tradition and actually introduced it into the Mishnah as something, but this is not something that's biblical to them. It is a tradition. It's like a ritual, right? It's like a Catholic reading, they're doing the rosary. It's a tradition. That's not biblical. That's a tradition, right? So Matthew 3 says, 15:3, he answered and said to them, "Why do you also transgress the command of God because of your tradition?" So Jesus told them, this is not my Father's command, right? This is something this is a tradition, right? He's not saying this comes from the law of Moses. He's saying a tradition. And we have to understand that Jesus is making it clear. This is a tradition. So this is something that they have become accustomed to. This is something that have become a part of them. And so they do it. But Jesus says in this case, your tradition dishonors father and mother. Why? Because that's not a command given by God to the forefathers. It was not a command given by God even to the people before them, right? So by doing this, they're dishonoring father and mother because they're dishonoring their ancestors, they're dishonoring what God actually put in place, right? Only the high priest should be washing their hands if they have one. So they were actually doing something that God did not command them to do. Matthew 15:4-6 says, "For God commanded, saying, honor your father and your mother, and he who curses father or mother, let him be put to death. But you say, whoever says to his father or mother, whatever profit you might have received from me is a gift of God, then he need not honor his father or mother. Then you have the commandment of God. You make the commandment of God of no effect by your tradition." So they're actually losing, right, God's commandments because of this tradition, right? They're actually making God's commandment of no effect because they're doing what they want to do. Now they're criticizing Jesus and his disciples for what they're doing. But it's like, you see the speck of somebody else's eye, but you don't see the speck in your eye, right? Which is very hypocritical. Hypocrisy is not from God. Now, they were not being obedient to God because this was not from God. But here in Exodus, two verses in Exodus, and one verse in Deuteronomy tells you a little more about the father and mother thing. So Exodus 20:12 says, honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long upon the land which the Lord your God is giving you. In Exodus 21:17, it says, honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long upon the land. And he who curses his father and his mother shall be surely put to death, right? And then Deuteronomy 5:16 says, honor your father and your mother as the Lord your God has commanded you, that your days may be long and that it may be well with you in the land which the Lord your God is giving you. So these are three different commands, which actually Jesus is mentioning in Matthew, right? Jesus is saying the exact same thing in Matthew. He's reminding them, these are the commands that you received. Not that tradition, this is what God gave you. And you have been dishonoring God by doing this, because that's not what God gave you. And you have made it into a law. It's okay to do it if you want to do it as your tradition. Don't make it into a law, because it's not. It doesn't come from God. Remember, the Jews were obedient to the laws of God. Now, we don't have to obey those laws of God in the same way that they do, although Jesus said he came to fulfill the law, right? So those laws still exist for us, right? But there's a difference now in the New Testament because we are under the new covenant as opposed to the old covenant. So by straying away from the commandments of God which their ancestors have followed, they're disobeying God's commands. Now, here it is. The Messiah is right in front of their faces, and they don't even realize it. Because they're so caught up in their laws and their traditions that they don't see that Jesus, the Messiah they have been waiting for, was right in front of their faces. Their concern was so much involved in their tradition and their customs that they couldn't see that Jesus Christ had come as promised. They couldn't see it. I mean, these were promises that were given throughout the Old Testament, right? Isaiah, in 750 years earlier, wrote chapter 53, right? And they still didn't realize that he was there. So in Jesus' eyes, these were hypocrites, right? They were not following what was written by Moses, given to him by God, but they were following what they wanted to follow. They were following what they believed was part of their tradition or their laws, when in fact it was not. But he had become accustomed, right? He had become accustomed. So for example, in my old tradition, I had to baptize my kids as soon as they were born. Right? When they turned 9, 10, they had to do communion. When they turned about 12, they had to go and do the confirmation. Right? And you had to follow those. If you go to a priest as an adult and ask to be married, he will not marry you unless you have done those things. And you have to do them as an adult. When my niece was getting married, I had to become her future husband's godfather when he did his confirmation and his communion and his baptism. He's a grown man who cannot get married because of these traditions. And again, these are traditions, this is not God's laws. So we have to be very careful what we believe and what we follow, because there are traditions that have been made into what seem to be laws, but they're not in the Bible. We have to follow the Word. So originally I was going to call my message Focus on Jesus, and then I changed it to Follow the Word, because we have to follow the Word while we focus on Jesus. We follow the Word while we focus on Jesus. And it is very difficult to go out and tell someone that he's a hypocrite when, if we look at ourselves, there's a lot of hypocrisy in us, in many ways, right? How many times do we judge someone because of the way they dress, the way they come to church? the way they eat, the way they behave. How many times do we gossip about someone? How many times have we tried speaking to those same individuals to try to tell them if we find that they're doing something wrong or we believe they're doing something wrong? How many times have we tried to correct them? Most times we don't. We just criticize them. But what does the Bible call us to do? Correct them in love, right? We should be trying to correct them in love. Our command is to show love to everyone. That's the command. Show love to everyone. And when we do that, we become less hypocrites. Because now we're showing love as opposed to criticizing someone. If I feel that you're doing something wrong, I should come to you and tell you exactly what you're doing. And hopefully you will take it the right way. So for example, there was a person that I told that, I'd like to give you some constructive criticism, if you don't mind. And we know the history of that. So, this church should be part of our home. We should consider each other family. And if I hope and pray that if you see me doing something wrong, that you will approach me and you will tell me. And maybe after that we can pray so that I can be delivered from whatever it is that I'm doing wrong. And I hope that we can do that for each and every one of us without feeling that someone is making, embarrassing us or whatever the case is. We should not be embarrassed when someone comes to us and says, I think you should not do this, I think that maybe you should do this instead. And I think that when we act that way, we grow together. Stronger. Right? We become stronger. We become more focused on what we are supposed to be focused on, which is Jesus. And that's my second point. Right? Focus on Jesus. Verses 7 to 9 said, hypocrites, well did Isaiah prophesy about you, saying, these people draw near to me with their mouth and honor me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. And in vain they worship me, teaching as doctrines the commandments of men. They're not teaching the commandments of God, but the commandments of man. The Jewish people dishonor God with their tradition. They dishonor Him. How many times have we dishonored God with the things that we do? The things that we're not supposed to do. We need to think about that. Our focus should be on Jesus. And Jesus only, right? Some people come to church and act very godly in church, right? Come to church on Sunday. They're the godliest people in church. But then they leave the church. And some of them don't even hide how they behave outside the church. They don't even hide it. They just behave in a way that is inappropriate. They behave in a way that they shouldn't. And they don't even hide it. And it's pretty embarrassing, especially to me when I see that. And I've seen it a couple of times with people who come to this church, who I've seen them doing things that, if you profess that God is in your heart, if you profess that Jesus is your focus, if you profess that you love Jesus, you have to be careful how you live your life. We all do it. We all do it. We don't want to dishonor Jesus because we don't follow His commands. When our hearts are not right with God, we dishonor God. And at that moment is when we have to come down on our knees in prayer. You know, they say that the quickest way to get from point A to point B is a straight line, right? It's a straight line going down to your knees, to the ground. It's a straight line. That's the quickest way for us to go back to God and say, forgive me. I repent of what I did. Matthew 10:11 says, when he had called the multitude to himself, he said to them, hear and understand, not what goes into your mouth defiles a man, but what comes out of the mouth defiles a man. And again, you can eat anything you want. Right? You can eat anything you want because every food was given to us to be eaten. Right? You can eat whatever you want. So what goes into your mouth is not going to defile you. It's what comes out of your mouth. Because like I said in a previous message, once it comes out of your mouth, you can't take it back. Right? When you say something and it comes out of your mouth, you can't take it back. So you offend someone, you can't take it back. You are caught by one of your church members doing something, saying something to someone on the street, you can't take it back. So we need to be very careful how we act, how we behave, how we talk, because when we are seen by others, we can't take it back. And what that tells me is that we are supposed to be living a life, no matter where we are, that is pleasing to God. Because we're not hiding anything from God. Right? I can hide anything from you guys, but I can't hide anything from God. He sees it. So I'm lying to myself if I think that I'm getting away with something because I'm doing it behind your backs. When I'm doing something that I think nobody knows, right? What am I doing? I'm lying to myself because God knows. And he's the one that's ultimately going to, you're not going to judge me. God is going to judge me. So that's what I have to be worried about. I shouldn't be worried about you. I have to be worried about God. You are not going to judge me. God is. When I come before that seat of Christ, and I'm standing there and he says, Frank, why did you do what you did? I mean, what can you say? I'm sorry, it's too late. Once you pass from this world, I'm sorry, it's too late. Now, I've seen masses for someone who has passed away, where they pray and say, God, may you forgive this person their sins. That's all well and good, but if they were not forgiven before they died, it's too late. It's too late. So we have to be careful again, that we're not disobedient to God because of the things that we do, right? Like I said, we're not disobedient to God because we eat, but we're disobedient to God because what comes out. Now what goes in, what comes out. When our words are not in line with God's command, we disobey Him. When we offend people for no reason, we disobey Him. We were constantly judging others instead of showing them love. We disobey Him. Our focus should be on Jesus and the love that He has for us. And we should try to be replicating that love because He loved us first, right? So we need to learn how to be obedient, faithful, and truthful, right? Because His word is true. If His word is true, we need to be truthful in order to continue in that path that He has set before us. Now, I have a couple of applications, but I actually named my application this time saying being obedient, right? My third point, which is my application, is being obedient. Colossians 2:6-8 says this: as you therefore have received Christ Jesus the Lord, so walk in Him, rooted and built up in Him, and established in His faith, as you have been taught, abounding in it with thanksgiving. Beware lest anyone cheat you through philosophy and empty deceits, according to the tradition of men, according to the basic principles of the world, and not according to Christ. So there will be false teachers who might prophesy to you, who might give you the wrong information. You have to be able to discern what the right information is. If you have been anointed by the Holy Spirit, you will know. You will know. Following anything other than God's words is dangerous. It's dangerous to our health. It's dangerous to our health. Because it could lead us into a path, and we talked about last week about the white path and the narrow gate and the white gate. Well, the white gate comes with a white path, and the narrow gate comes with a narrow path. And we want to be in the narrow path, but we don't want to be on that white gate where everything else is not good for us. And don't just believe what I tell you. Don't just believe what any other preacher tells you. Read it for yourself. Get into the Word. Study the Word. Learn about the Word. We're not perfect. And I can make mistakes up here just like any of you can. And if I ever make a mistake here and say something that is not appropriate, I hope that you guys can bring it up to me. Correction is the only way to grow. Right? It's the only way to grow. Now, don't just do what anybody tells you because of a tradition. Right? We just read where it says, beware lest anyone cheat you through philosophy and empty deceit according to the tradition of men. Not a tradition of God, tradition of men. And the washing of the hands by the Jews is a tradition of men. It wasn't a God law, it was a tradition of men. So don't just do what you're told because of tradition. If it is not God's word, and you go to a church that's doing something that, because of tradition, find yourself another church.
Amen.
This is not what you want to do. Now, we need to follow the narrow path because it leads to what? It leads to eternity, right? That's the path that we want to follow. Exodus 19:5 says, now therefore, if you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant, then you shall be a special treasure to me above all people, for all the earth is mine. We are God's people. So let's focus on what he has for us and be obedient to that. Let's be mindful that he provides all our needs. Right? He provides all our needs. There's nothing that God cannot provide for us as long as we are in him and with him. Right? Let's be faithful to his word. My last point is on Colossians 3:2. Set your mind on things above, not on things of the earth. And my point is our focus should be on pleasing Jesus. We should be showing love to one another. We should be focused on walking with Jesus and like Jesus, right? And like Jesus. We should be focused on helping those in need. That's what Jesus did. He continuously helped people in need. This should include mentoring young believers. So if you have a person that becomes a young believer in your church, we should be mentoring that person, right? We should be mentoring him. Now, one thing that I recommend is that you should be mentoring people of your own sex to avoid any temptations, to avoid any issues arising that should not be arising. So I recommend that we mentor people of our own sex. And if you have somebody that needs to be mentored, recommend someone in the church or someone that you know to that person so that they could be mentored by someone of their own sex. I think that this is the easiest way to avoid some of the temptations that come with situations like this. I was speaking to a young man a couple of months back who said he had this girlfriend and he had this friend, and the girlfriend and the friend started spending a lot of time. They were in youth group together, spending a lot of time together, studying together. So guess what happened?
They got together.
He lost his girlfriend to his friend.
Some friend.
And they were supposed to be getting married, and this happened. So that to say, keep yourself from the temptations of doing something with someone that's of the opposite sex. Avoid it. Because that's also something that is not from God, right? You taking away somebody else's girlfriend is not from God. So we want to be able to maintain ourselves on the right path. We need to teach our mentors to live the right way, right? We need to teach our mentors to live the right way. And teaching them to show love, the same love that you're showing them, to show love to someone else, right? To show the same kind of love that you're showing them to someone else. Why? Because that's how the word is spread. That's how we grow. But as long as we keep ourselves focused on number one, which is Jesus Christ, we'll be okay. Amen?